guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel, Books with Brie. I'm Brianne, and today I will be talking through the books that I was able to read in the month of December. So the first book that I was able to finish in the month of December was The Merciless by Danielle Vega. This book follows a group of teenage girls as Sophia, the main character, has just moved to this new small town in what is considered the Bible Belt, where religion is very, very important to almost everyone around, and it is frowned upon to, delve away from those views. And so Sophia gets involved with this group of girls, and from the very beginning, something feels off. And by the end, you are left questioning what is real and what is not. This book specifically kind of screwed with my head, and I know it is part of a series, but I will sadly not be picking up the sequel, which is kind of a prequel to this, for the simple fact that this screwed with my head so much. But do not let that derive you from the fact that it was very well written. It was very enthralling. I couldn't put it down. I read it in the span of just a few days, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason I did dock it a star was for the simple fact of I was left with an uneasy feeling after reading it, which is a good thing for people who are looking for that kind of read, but for me specifically, I didn't think it was a book like this. I hadn't done much research on it before picking it up, and I was under the impression that it was about witches and just that kind of thing, but no, this did what it set out to do. It made you question religion and how deep it really runs and how it causes people to react and act. So I think if you're looking for a good book that has you questioning religion in teenagers, I think this would be an amazing thing to delve into. No, it is not quite serious. It does explore a few serious topics, but it is not strictly pertaining to reality. It does swerve off a bit towards the end, which you don't see coming, and it can leave you a little bit confused, but I do recommend this for anyone looking for a book that questions religion and the supernatural. The second book that I was able to get through in the month of December was Swimming Lessons by Lily Reinhart. This is a collection of personal poetry to the actress and now debut author Lily Reinhart about love and heartbreak and self-discovery. Personally, I loved it. It was so good. There were several poems in here that I really connected with, but my opinions were also influenced by several reviews I had read on Goodreads where people were not able to connect with a majority of the poems and therefore regarded this as bad poetry. In my personal opinion, I believe all poetry is good poetry as long as there are people out there that can connect to it. And in some ways, poetry is more so about whether the author is truly able to express themselves in their writing for themselves and not anyone else. So in my opinion, this is a perfect piece of poetry and a perfect example of modern poetry, as the message is in a very modern language and easy to understand, but perfectly expresses how the author felt when she wrote these. I did end up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars because there were a lot of poems in here that I could not personally relate to, but I really do believe it is worth the original read to just try and know what she's saying. Second read, which I'm going to be doing here in the new year, just to annotate and try to analyze more in depth some of these poems that seem very logical and straight to the point. I want to try and dig deeper, which might cause my rating to change. The next book that I was able to finish in the month of December was How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. This is a novella in the Folk of the Air trilogy, which is labeled on Goodreads as book 3.5. though it could be read at any point in the series if you are okay with some minor spoilers, and it provides more explanation to some of the events that happened within the first 3 books that would have been, you know, useful in that moment in time, but didn't make sense to have at that point. So this book follows Jude and Cardan as they follow the events after book 3, The Queen of Nothing, as Cardan and Jude are traveling to the mortal world to try and hash something out with Jude's old boss. And then we get all of these little stories from Cardan's childhood in the middle of the story, and it makes it feel as more of a broken up book of short stories from Cardan's life, though at the end you see how they all tie together and how it brings you from that very first story all the way to the end, and how if you didn't have those stories in the middle, you wouldn't understand why Cardan does what he does, or how Cardan does what he does, or how he knew this person. And you get a little bit more of Jude and Cardan, not much, but you get just enough to understand that this book is not about Jude and Cardan, but it is about Cardan and himself and his childhood and why he is the way he is. And no, what you read in here will not excuse some of the actions that he has taken in the Folk of the Air trilogy, but it will help you understand better why he took them and what could have happened if he hadn't. Personally, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars just for the simple fact of the Folk of the Air trilogy is an all-time favorite, a new favorite as of 2020 when I finished it, but nonetheless a favorite, and this didn't do anything to damage my opinion of the series, and I will definitely reread this. Plus it is filled with gorgeous art, which is by Rovina Kai. Rovina Kai, her artwork is gorgeous. I will try and find some of her social media to link in the description so you guys can go and support her artwork as well, because I believe, if I'm not wrong, she did the cover and like everything else that's in here, and it's so gorgeous, and I wish everyone had the ability to experience all of this artwork as well. Alright, now the 4th and final book that I was able to finish in the month of December was Renegades by Marissa Meyer, the first book in this trilogy, and I personally gave it a 4 out of 5 stars just for the simple fact of I was expecting more of Adrian and Nova content, didn't get it as much as I would have liked, and there were some plot points that I would have changed or would have expanded upon that were not, but that does not change the fact that this story was written beautifully, and I will most definitely be picking up the sequel, which is Arch Enemies. So this book follows Nova, who is an anarchist, which is a group of prodigies or people who have superhuman abilities that did not conform to the Renegades who had stepped in about 10 years earlier to try and stop the chaos and havoc that was reaching the entire world as government had fallen and the Renegades stepped in to try and fix everything. But the anarchists were one of the major gangs reaching for power during this time of anarchy. And so Nova is part of the anarchists, which is one of the only major gangs still around, but they are considered inactive. Nova wants to get back at the Renegades because of how they ended things and how she believes that they are not truly there to help because of stuff she experienced early on in childhood. And so she decides to go undercover as a renegade and tries out to be a renegade in these trials as to get information to help the anarchists in their attempts to overthrow the Renegades. But as she continues on through the book, she starts to realize her opinions could differ, but pushes them aside because of one person that she loves and cares about that we don't really get to meet in this book until the very, very end, and we do not get much of him in general. And I am kind of really excited to see the second one and see where it goes. My only quarrel with this book really was the fact that I had absolutely no idea where it was leading to in the end. There was not much information telling us what could happen and what direction the plot was intending to go, and so I was a little lost, but that could also be because this is a different kind of book than I'm used to reading, and it is really good, and there are so many people that rave about it and have genuine critiques, and I believe that this would be a great book for anyone trying to get into the YA genre or into reading in general. It just does a really good job of keeping you entertained. Now, I just very quickly would like to go over my top 3 books that I plan to read in the month of January. Now, to start off the month and the year, I decided to jump into The Vampire Diaries, Volumes 1 and 2, The Awakening and the Struggle by L.J. Smith. This is the book series that the Vampire Diaries TV show was based off of, though I went into this believing that it was quite similar to the show and have quickly found that it is very different, and there are very many differences that the show kind of took on and changed from the book. So this is the first one that I am reading. After The Vampire Diaries, I plan to read Misery by Stephen King. My dad got me this one for Christmas, which I am so happy for and thankful for. And he kind of always jokes that I am like Annie from this book, and I have yet to read it. And I know that's not a good comparison, so I'm eager to see what this one is like. And finally, because Netflix is coming out with a book-to-TV show adaptation of this series/universe, I decided to pick up Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which is the start of the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Netflix has decided to combine some of Shadow and Bone and the Six of Crows duology into the same world, as to give some of the Six of Crows characters more backstory. And so not only will I be trying to pick up Shadow and Bone, as well as the rest of the trilogy this month and into February, as well as the Six of Crows duology and King of Scars duology as well. Alright guys, that was it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comment section below either some books that you were able to read in December or some of the books you want to try and read in January.